I have a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future.
Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation returned in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
But I didn't start it. But sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war, they go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back and they're slaughtered.
Yes, welcome to Cross Politic, everyone. Thank you for listening, downloading us, subscribing to us.
Hello.
Yep.
Wow.
We have a number of hosts here today. We have a special host who I'll introduce first, and then we'll get to the other guy. Yeah,
I'm so
you
giddy.
guys are last.
I'm so giddy.
We have a
Welcome
special.
back. Chocolate Knox is back.
It's Chocolate Knox. We're gonna introduce Chocolate Knox now.
I didn't know I needed an introduction. That's good to know.
He came back though.
From where? Oh, that's right. Chocolate was in Minnesota.
We missed you.
You guys didn't miss
We
me.
missed
Stop
you.
That.
Yes.
Now the population of Moscow, Idaho went down in black
The black
folks
population
about 50%.
doubled. It doubled when you came back.
So we're back to normal then.
Yeah.
All right.
So of course we have Toby sitting in front of me.
Hello.
Pastor, praise the Lord, Pastor. How you doing?
Doing all
Glory
right.
to
Doing all right. Doing all right. It's fall. It's fall outside. Did you notice how cold it was this morning?
It was.
It was chilly.
I got my beanie out.
It was chilly.
I'm wearing my beanie wherever
saw
I go
that.
now.
It was chilly.
My ears are big.
The leaves are falling.
I need to keep them cold. We also have
keep cold.
Yes, I need to keep them warm. It's backwards
He's
day.
only got one that works.
Let's also introduce, so Ben can actually have some fun with us. Dr. Ben Merkel, President of New St. Andrews, is in the studio with us today.
Everybody, hello there.
Y'all get ready. It's about to get crazy.
He's the president.
The doctor
He's the
and
president.
Yeah, you need to avert your eyes when you say that.
Don't look at me.
El Presidente. Sorry, that was my name.
Man, I'm dropping secrets that he's
Oh,
here.
no.
I know stuff about you.
I just got out of an NSA board meeting. I can.
Boring meeting?
No, I said board meeting. I said board meeting.
Give him a smackdown.
What'd you guys discuss?
That, you know?
I'm going to tell everything.
Hey, speaking of,
What's up?
I just got a text from a listener just now, literally. Saying,
That's what I was looking like. Is that
listen to the
me?
show. No, that was me. That was me.
Hey, turn your phone
Don't
off.
turn their phone off.
I need to turn off my notifications.
Phil.
But we really appreciate everyone who's downloaded and listened to the podcast.
Tell us our
gone to
stats.
our website. We had last week, because our stats are just now getting up and running, we had last week at least 600 downloads last week. So that's super awesome. Really appreciate you
Who
guys.
are those people?
Well, here's something we've proved. We've proved that there's at least 600 people out there who can waste an hour.
Yeah.
At least.
Okay,
At least.
600
Yeah.
people.
We weren't sure.
And,
Wow.
And our reach is we got our reach into Turkey, Mexico.
What?
A
A shout out to Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey.
Hello.
Either they accidentally got on our website and downloaded.
They're like, oops. It's in English.
Poor people. Look, thank you. Hey, that's huge.
Yeah.
Wait. You didn't finish. Turkey, where else?
UK, of course, Canada, and U.S. So
Of course,
those are
Canada.
yeah. Don't you know? Wait, that's Norwegian. That's Minnesota.
I'm not. Nope. Canadian folks, I didn't do that to y'all.
Let me read a couple feedback from some of our listeners here. I got from Waylon O'Connor. Shouts out to you. This is probably my favorite feedback that we got back. He says, "I just found out about the show thanks to Apology Radio. Man, I love your show. To me, it's the first. It's a fist to the face."
You want to try that again?
Yeah, to me, it's a fist to the face. It gives me that edge I love. The intro sets the tone, and I love it. It's like Rage Against the Machine meets Apology Radio. And I hope God continues to bless you and everyone else through your ministry.
We should just let him know we don't have any job openings, so he can.
Way to go, Waylon. I know.
We don't have any. Sorry, bro. We don't have any job openings. Thank you though for the review.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you, Waylon. We also had one other one. We got was where'd it go? It was on.
Oh, that was it. Just
That
one.
was it. No, we had a bunch. I was
600 downloads and one review.
I was trying to go through all my texts. I text you guys all the feedback and everything, but I can't find it now.
Well, you know what? Hey, it's very, very good to have a few people listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fact that anybody would take the time to listen to us guys. I mean, now look, I can understand if it was Pastor Merkel.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can't stop doing that. I know,
Doctor.
I can't help
President.
it. I'm gonna call him Elder Pastor.
You looked into his eyes.
Yeah.
I actually prefer El Jefe.
And you're here for the whole show, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, we're in trouble.
He got suckered.
As far as he knows.
We'll see how this goes.
He got deep into it. It could be cutting out after break. So let's get to some news. What happened this last
there's
week?
no news. There's no news.
I think we all know what happened.
A fight in the leprosy
We had a debate on Sunday night between
last night
two people. I hear.
Is it debate?
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Oh! Got him! He got him! Get her! She needs ambulance! She's on the ground! Somebody help security! Oh! Ouch!
Did you see her face? You should have seen her face when he said that. That was the first time the crowd clapped. So they instruct the crowd, do not clap. Right. Do not, Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you watch that whole debacle?
I rolled around and wrestled my kids on the ground while it was on the background.
So. You subjected your children to such foolishness.
Oh, man.
my 6-year-old daughter said, "What are they doing?"
What we're doing, baby.
And I said, "I don't know."
They're just wrestling.
I was going to say, I don't know is debate the right word. I don't know.
Well, it's a town hall, more of a town hall format and everything. But they instructed the crowd, do not say anything and everything. That was the first time the crowd actually reacted.
I watched Twitter for most of the evening. I was just following it via Twitter.
Well,
I just listen. I mean, it was just blowing up. Afterwards, Twitter said that it was the most tweeted about, I think, political event. I don't know what the exact thing, what the category it falls in, but 17 million tweets.
Wow. Yeah.
Related to the debate.
At the board meeting, Chaba was there, who was just back from the Ivory Coast, Africa, West Africa, and was describing how West Africa was following the debate for the campaign really closely.
Well, no, why would they follow it so closely?
It has a lot of impact on them.
In what way?
American foreign policy.
Oh yeah, they care.
Really?
Do they get money from us? I mean, like.
Well, I mean, what we're going to do with troops, I suppose money as well, but I think more how we're going to handle things in the Middle East and things like that, because that affects the northern bit of Africa quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the real reason we have you on the show, Dr. Pastor Ben Merkle.
Yes, sir.
Who are you voting for?
Right, Reverend. Right, Reverend. Doctor.
We need an informed view on who you're voting for, so we can say, okay, we're going to be.
It's still up for grabs, but as of now, it's probably still Alfred the Great.
Which, by the way, Ben has written a book on Alfred the Great.
Do you
go
vote
to
for
Canon
Alfred
Press
the Great every single time?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I voted for Alfred, and usually Sir Philip Sidney for his vice president candidate.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
I feel like he does something to round out the ticket.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to write in a VP?
I did.
Did you?
I wasn't expecting this kind of comedy from you. I was expecting more of a little, this is one of the other things that kind of fooled me with you is I know, and most people don't, that you are an athlete.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah. Not just any kind of athlete, but you're a skier.
That was
yes.
That was a good that was a good look.
Are you really? Are you talking water ski?
Water ski. And not
okay,
just any kind of let's just jump on some skis and have some fun. The
really?
Dude, can I call you Mr. Dude?
You can.
The Mr. Dude
El
is...
Jefe Dude.
Jefe Mr. Dude is beast on some water skis.
Really?
Brother doesn't wipe out.
How do you know this?
Because we were shooting a documentary.
Oh.
You remember They Grow Up Fast, right? Darren Doan.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's another one that it's in the works still. It's called Summer that
Oh no!
he ends up kind of being the star in.
Oh
yeah!
See, no, they say, come on up, we'll hang out at the cabin. I'll take you skiing. I go out there. There's like a couple cameras on the back of the boat.
Yeah.
There's a camera mounted to the handle, the rope handle.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
holding onto the ski,
We
and then there's
nothing.
a drone following above with the camera catching the whole thing.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. I'm looking ridiculous.
Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dude performed every bit of it. Like didn't wipe once. Took how far did you go? A couple miles, just like beasting, like shredding him. I'm like,
Wow.
what?
Wow.
Like that's so. And that's something that I'm going somewhere with this.
This should be a qualification for president.
Well, this is what I was gonna say. Is like everyone here in our little culture community, they kind of caught me off guard. And this is one of the ways that Mr. Dr. Dude, Ben Merkle, did this is that it was super duper manly. Like it was like, but so I got kind of fooled by the tie and the suit jacket. right? Like, I got, the bow tie, yeah, okay. The suit tie, okay. The jacket, okay. I thought that meant one thing. But don't get confused.
Just to be clear, there's never been a bow tie in the mix. Let's just make sure that's
others around.
Put a marker on that. Put a marker on that.
Yeah, other people around wear the bow ties. I was just saying, but but the guys here, they have this amazing duality that I love, which is they're amazingly fatherly, gentle, husbandly, but when it comes time to like get down and get dirty, these dudes are beasts. Like, and I love that about the guys that are in leadership. It's like, they're not just in some ivory tower, No, they're in the works. Their hands are in the mud, and they have the ability to do whatever it is. So kind of like, if I have a solid theology, I also have my hands that can perform it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a duality that I love. I love being that kind of clean at the same time. Like, hey, man, pull out the boat. I'm going to shred on you real quick. Like, oh, that's amazing.
I'm still really scared that this footage is out there.
Well, and something that I don't see Jonathan, I don't think Jonathan Edwards could ski. I don't know. He could, maybe. But it's a wonderful thing that I love that our theology is actually practical. Pastor Merkel's fun. You know what I mean? Pastor Dr. Dude, president of NSA, is super fun, too. Yeah, and that's one of the things that you don't usually get. It's usually like you're so high up, you can't be enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't another faculty member Mitch Stokes? He's like got 5 black belts or something.
That's exactly. Don't let the bow tie fool you.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You will get smashed. And I love that. I love the fact that it's unassuming. I don't think that most people when they roll up on you or roll up on black belt Dr. Stokes that they would think that I could lose my life right now. And I like that can exist in those two worlds underneath a bow tie or a tie in your case.
Thank you.
And a suit jacket. I love that can exist like that,
Yeah, amen.
Oh, you just act like I didn't say like that. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's Norm Knox.
No.
We live like that. No, everybody knew that.
You lived in Minnesota too long.
No, but you know what? There's usually, guys are soft. And usually guys who put on suit coats and suit jackets and their ties, they don't have the blue collar and the white collar lives don't exist together. Yeah. And so when you see a man that can get down and get gritty with you at the same time, being very high up, and that's impressive. That leaves this this duality. It kind of makes it more enjoyable. Like, man, I want to be like that. So I want to be that kind of man. So
there's good gritty. And there's bad gritty.
Donald Trump can't ski.
There we go.
Probably
Donald Trump.
Probably not like
to segue into Donald Trump. There's bad gritty.
Right.
And what happened last night at the debate? The first question that they started off with was Donald Trump's lewd comments.
Right.
On basically, as they phrased it, that he was advocating for sexual assault in his lewd comments.
And that he could get away with it.
And he can get away with it. Right. And so they start off,
and it's been proven.
The debate began. It's been proven by both Donald and Bill Clinton.
We're just talking about don't try and we know Bill's got his issues.
But what I think kind of what's striking about all this with the recent revelation of these lewd comments from Donald Trump that happened back in 2005,
right,
is that there's all these evangelicals and even current politicians who are now backing away and unendorsing Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Falwell tweets out either last night or first thing this morning how proud he is of Donald Trump.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah, no, full on, like double down, like
triple. You're tribling down.
Yeah, no, like full on, like I'm all in. Way to go, Donald Trump. Like no, like, and this is the several of the people that were retweeting it or commenting it or replying to it were saying this is the first thing he said since the lewd recording thing came out. So Falwell just doubles down.
The thing is, I mean, I know later on we're going to be talking a little bit about Christian higher ed, but that Falwell right there, that has everything to do with the fear of presence of Christian schools of what's going to happen after this election.
Right.
Because so much is at stake, and so he's pushing all the chips on the table on Donald Trump and betting that Donald will save liberty and protect.
Yeah. And Hillary, I mean, is throwing all the signals that she doesn't care.
Yeah.
So
she has a private opinion, a private. What did she call it? She said, "I have a private policy and a public policy."
Public policy, yeah, right. That's a really good angle though, because I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, Falwell has got Christian higher ed, and so all the chips on the table, I'm all in.
Did he say what he's most proud of with Donald? Like, what did he list like it all? Like, hey, I'm proud of, I don't know, how he treats women and
but I mean, do you guys remember the picture when Falwell?
Right next to the Playboy picture on the wall.
Falwell and his wife. Falwell and his wife with
Donald
Trump
Trump.
with Playboy on the wall. I mean, just the picture was like 1,000 words.
And so his comments the next day on that, because he got tons of flack from evangelicals, he said, "Hey, Jesus hung out with sinners,"
right?
And that was his response was,
and then said,
"No, but
so
Jesus,
proud of you."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but Jesus didn't endorse sinners, which is what.
Right. He said, "Go and sin no more."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, he hung out with sinners.
Yeah. So in contrast to Falwell, we have someone like Wayne Grudem, who probably has the #1 selling systematic theology book in America and possibly the world. I mean, Wayne Grudem is everywhere. When you look on the shelf, you'll see his systematic theology almost in everybody's shelf. He's come out and said, you know what? I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. He's not a man of character. I can't endorse him. I'm not saying I'm not. Now, here's what's interesting about that. He didn't say he wasn't going to vote for him. What he said was, I hope he drops out.
Yeah.
He knows for sure he's not voting for Hillary.
Do what's right and get out.
Yeah, I hope that he drops out.
Right.
That was how he responded of whether or not he was going to vote for. Look, come on now.
Falwell says, proud of real Donald Trump tonight, won by a landslide, ! Emphasizing issues will always trump Hillary Clinton. No Republican could do better.
Oh, my goodness. That's awful.
Well, he might be right now. The truth is he might be right. Everybody, I was looking at Cruz like, okay, Cruz, I'm not a big fan of yours, but man, you've been holding out. Wait, what? He did what?
Yeah.
He endorsed him?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, honestly, Falwell might be exactly right. He's right. No one can probably do better. All the people who we respected, no Republican.
Right.
Yeah. All the people we've respected in some way have capitulated for the purpose of not supporting Trump necessarily, but being anti-Hillary.
But here's the thing. The bottom line, though, is why is this a surprise to anybody? Like, why? Wayne Grudem actually says in his apology, to his credit, that
don't do it because I'm gonna smash him in a minute. Go ahead.
No, but to his credit says people could validly ask me why I didn't see this about his character earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And I probably should have.
Yeah.
But like. For real.
No.
Like for real should have. Like there's no surprise.
No
surprise, right? This is I'm sure there's 100 or 1,000 more recordings just like this.
He has books on the issue of politics
and
godly character in politics. He has a book on systematic theology where he's written strictly on sin and
well, I'm just talking about I'm just talking about Trump.
Trump's comments. Trump's video comments.
That's what I'm talking about. Wayne Grudem had for him not to have vision on the issue of Trump concerns me about him as a leader. This is one of those things where it's like, I forgive you and I'm happy you're back in the fold, but don't expect me now to follow you when you can't have vision on something so plain. This is not something, if I tell my daughter, hey baby, go get the yellow pen, and she comes back with the blue pen and the yellow pen, and they're sitting next to each other, I don't trust her anymore when it comes to seeing colors. Or she's not listening. Whichever the case, they're both super bad. So in this case, he's telling us he commended other people to vote for Trump. Why don't you step back for a second and say, let me consider this a little more, watch how this plays out, or hey, be like other leaders, I ain't gonna name no name, but Pastor Wilson, who've been one way consistently and hasn't bent the knee, right? Don't bow the knee, dude. That's all you have to do. Don't bow the knee. Now, you're welcome back. I love you. Your systematic theology has some issues, but I still love it.
Yeah,
but I don't trust them on worldview issues anymore.
Well, let me ask this question: how does a guy like Wayne Grudem, what weak link does he have to be able to think this way and to be able to end up endorsing a guy like?
Yeah, Dr. Merkel. What kind of?
What's happened to his reasoning to be able to get to the point where because he's systematically he's pretty solid, and then all of a sudden it's like, what's going on?
It's purely a matter of gambling whether what was obvious but nobody's talking about is going to become so obvious that we have to talk about it. Gambling that you'll be able to get away with it for long enough. But I don't think there's any way it wasn't coming here. I mean, of course this was going to become apparent, so it was a silly gamble.
And this fear of Hillary.
It always was.
There's a huge fear of the Clinton, thing.
Yeah.
And so when you have, I think, and lesser of two evils, it's a slippery slope. It's a setup for compromise when you just sort of set yourself into a context where it's always lesser of two evils. It's always this way. Well, evil compared to what?
Yeah. Well, and look, guys, America does 10 to 12 billion dollars a year in pornography. I don't believe that you're outraged.
Yeah.
You know, sorry.
Yeah.
I ain't buying it.
Yeah.
Next on Cross Politic.
We have coming up an interview with Charles Sykes on the book Fail You. Exciting, great interview.
Fail You.
Parliament apologist. Apologetics seeks to give credible answers to curious questions, to give a defense. What is idolatry? John the Apostle said, keep yourselves from idols. Well, this begs the question, what then is idolatry? Idolatry is the sin of creating pseudo-ultimate in place of the ultimate, who is God. It is looking to other things besides God to provide ultimate fulfillment in our lives. Now, granted, we're not melting down our gold, throwing parties, and dancing around it. We have a different type of idolatry. It's updated, 2.0 style. Call it neo-idolatry. It's a little more sophisticated, perhaps. It comes packaged differently. We market it differently, but nevertheless, it does the same thing to our heart. It's been said before by John Calvin that the human heart is an idol factory. We churn out idol after idol after idol, and these are often good things that become ultimate things in our lives. I remember hearing a story about an American pastor who was in India, and he was walking down a dusty road, and he came upon a place where they were sacrificing to chickens to the chicken god. And basically, as you know, there are over 300 million idols in India. And he spoke to this lady there, and he said, hey, will you ever come to America? And she says, oh, I've been there before. I'll never come again. He was shocked, and he asked why. She said, because I cannot stomach the idolatry. He thought, here I am watching people sacrifice, chickens to the chicken gods, and she can't stomach the idolatry? What's the deal? And where do you see idols? He wondered. She said, your idols are everywhere. You build stadiums to your idols, and you gather around and you worship your idols in stadiums. You throw parties in your family rooms and invite your friends to come and gather before your idols in your family rooms. You build restaurants to your idols. They're on every corner. They're all over the place. You see, isn't it interesting how idolatry has a different perspective looking through the lens of one culture than it does our own? We need to realize that idolatry is running rampant, not in every culture, but in every human heart. And the way we crush idolatry is through craving God.
For 21 years and counting, New St. Andrews College has sought to obey Christ's Great Commission to disciple nations and build him a house, not just in Jerusalem, but throughout the world. Not with stones and mortar, but with living stones. We build and fight. This is the task of a Christian liberal arts college, to equip students with the tools to build and fight. And this is our joyful task as we seek to graduate leaders who shape culture through wise and victorious living. To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu/explore.
Well, folks, welcome back to Cross Politic. I have with me, of course, one of our hosts, Toby Sumter.
All right, here we are.
We're going to do this. And then I also have in our studios Dr. Ben Merkel, president of New St. Andrews College. And then on the phone, I have Charles Sykes. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Merkel and Charlie.
Hey, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
It's a twofer.
Yeah, twofer today. Okay, so we're going to discuss actually your book. So Charles, just give a little background on Charles. You are an author, and you also a radio host yourselves, aren't you?
I am.
I'll expect
that's my day job.
Okay, well, we'll expect a grade on our show after this. So one of the books, your newest book is Fail You. That's basically Fail University, and it's kind of in a lot of ways a condemnation on current higher education promises. And I think when I read through your book, I think the one thing that first I couldn't get away from this, where it seemed like the root of universities they're failing systematically, but it's not a situation where you can just change and adjust the system or or change maybe some sort of legislation. It seems like there's like a fundamental problem with universities in the U.S. Is that kind of more what you're trying to get at? Is like there's fundamental issues and not just some sort of structural change that will make things better?
No, I can't imagine what one thing would make a difference. I mean, higher education, first of all, is this massive complex that's really embedded into our economy and our culture. And I think that, one of the things I talk about is why it's been so hard to make colleges more accountable, why efforts at reform have failed in the past. And in part, it's because they have had a monopoly access to something that's been crucial, which is the bachelor's degree. And as long as people thought that the bachelor's degree was essential for being part of the middle class, then they were willing to pay higher and higher tuition. They were willing to put up with a lot of the indifference and the absurdity of higher education, because really it was just something you did. This is what, and I start off with a scene of parents at a graduation ceremony saying to one another, "We did good." Now, did that mean that their children got a good education, a quality education, that they actually saw professors in the classroom or had a curriculum that made any sense? No, it meant that they got that one degree. I think that may be changing now.
Now, you would you connect that bachelor degree problem also to private education?
Well, yes, and I want to make it clear that I'm not painting with a completely broad brush here. Obviously there are still schools that are quite committed to providing a quality education, and I think some of the smaller liberal arts schools or religiously based schools have a very, very clear idea of what their mission is. But I think what's happened is that higher education got away from a focus on the life of the mind. It got away from a focus on students as people, who needed to be educated, and began pursuing their own agenda. And that's why you have this massive explosion of cost, massive explosion in debt, bureaucracies that have grown out of control, the Taj Mahal building projects that have really made higher education this out of control behemoth that it is today.
Why have we gotten away from that? I mean, what's the cause, you think, of us forgetting that the education of people is in the life of the mind is central? What's causing that?
Well, and again, this is not true at every single college, but I think it starts at some of the biggest and most prestigious universities, where the focus has not been on undergraduate education for decades. And I ought to just give you a little bit of background here that this is really kind of a follow-up book to a book that I wrote almost 30 years ago called Prof Scam, and that talked about the flight from teaching, the dismantling of the curriculum, where universities decided they were about something else, about the research agenda, or they were about, serving some other master as opposed to what happened in the classroom. And I revisited it and basically found that flight from teaching, that devaluing of the undergraduate education, has actually gotten a lot worse in the last 3 decades. So part of that is the answer to the question: what is a university about? And a lot of those universities, you may list, 10 major missions, and at the bottom of that list is the actual education of the undergraduate student.
Charlie, this is Ben Merkel. I was introduced. I'm the president of New St. Andrews College. We're a small private Christian liberal arts college, and I would just, by way of introduction, say I can't recommend your book highly enough. I just thought it was such a you really put your finger on what's going on in higher ed in so many different points in that book. I've already put this on the reading list for the board of New St. Andrews to read, because I just think it's really good. And anybody who's thinking critically about college and what they want to do for college, I think this is a great introduction and an important read. And one of the things, definitely. And one of the things that I thought you noted, the irony of how the more we throw free money at schools, the more expensive they get. And I'm wondering if you could flesh that out, and then also maybe say something about this idea of what if all of college was to become free? What's that going to do to the expense of it?
Yeah, this actually goes back to something that former Education Secretary Bill Bennett noted back in the 1980s. He actually wrote a piece called Our Greedy Colleges. And what he documented was that every time the government provided more free money to colleges used that as a green light to spend the money and to make it more expensive. Every single time we have pumped government tax money into higher education has gotten more and more expensive. So then you ask the question, what happens if we go along with this idea of free tuition? Well, I think there are two problems right now in higher education. One is the cost of higher education, and second is the value of higher education. And value means, what are students learning? Are they really being prepared? And I don't mean just, being prepared for jobs, but again, what kind of an education are they getting? Free college tuition does not address either one of those problems. It will not make college cheaper. It will make it more expensive based on this experience. And it will basically be a bailout of higher education, which means that those schools that are not providing value in return for tuition will no longer feel the pressure to up their game, to put more professors in the classroom, or to address these concerns. And one of the things that I address very bluntly is that the reality is we have too many young people who feel they need to go to college. This whole notion of college for all sounds good for politicians, but the reality is that not everyone needs to go to college. And as a result of this push to push everybody into a four-year college mold, I think we're setting too many students up to fail. I think there are too many students who spend too much time pursuing degrees that cost too much money, when in fact we don't need to be doing that right now.
Yeah. I think that's dead on, but it's also complete heresy.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that.
When's the last time you got invited to a university to speak?
Well, it's funny because I tell the story in the book about the number of times that when my first book on higher education came out, I spent a lot of time on college campuses, and obviously some of them were very hostile. But I also had some interesting experiences. I went to one big university here in my home state of Wisconsin, where I was talking about this flight from undergraduate teaching, how students would be lured to big universities by the prestigious faculty and all these famous professors, and then when they got there, they found out that they were blurs in the parking lot, and instead, a lot of the teaching had been turned over to graduate students. And by the way, this is something that I think smaller liberal arts schools really ought to market, is that you actually get professors in the classroom as opposed to, for example, teaching assistants that may not speak understandable English.
Right.
But I remember one of the first times I talked about that, I had a professor at the University of Wisconsin stand up and say, Mr. Sykes, that's just simply not true. We don't do that here. We do not have graduate students who don't speak English in the classes. And I was a little bit taken aback because, of course, they did. And so rather than, engage in a, he said, back and forth, yes, no, yeah. I asked the audience, the students, and there were about 300 or 400 of them. I said, how many of you here in this room have had classes with teaching assistants who do not speak understandable English? And about 3/4 of the hands went up.
Wow.
and it was one of those. The guy was just going to stand there and just flat out deny that it took place.
Wow.
But the other thing that I got a lot of on campuses when I spoke to professors and talked about why they didn't teach more was complaints about K-12 education. How many students are showing up for showing up for college, and they're not prepared to do college work at all. They've just been set up. They've been admitted. They've been given diplomas, but they just cannot do college level work, and this is a huge problem in American higher education.
Mm-hmm. With all the data you got at in your book, and it's heavy data. Why are colleges seemingly kind of rejecting this narrative when you can there's a lot of facts behind the bankruptcy of universities?
Well, they rejected it because this is their culture. They want to preserve the status quo. They're going where the money is, and the money for them is once they get the tuition money, those warm bodies in the classroom, They want to pursue other contracts, other priorities, research, and obviously they don't want to acknowledge that they, in fact, have been providing less value for more cost. I mean, all institutions resist criticism. I mean, that's the status quo is the status quo for a reason. Most institutions have to adapt or they die. In the case of higher education, however, because they are tenured in, they have been remarkably resistant to change. Yeah. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, in part that's because parents have been, society been willing to write out the check, almost with no questions asked. But again, I think with this higher education bubble and the $1.5 trillion in student debt, that may be changing.
Seems like one of the bottom line things here is that you've got, education has become a business, and when education becomes a business, then the bottom line financially is the bottom line, whereas if education is a mission, then people are willing to sacrifice a great deal financially to carry out a mission.
Well, that's exactly right, and certainly what I would encourage parents to do is look. Obviously we have, all of us who are parents want the best for our children. We want to get them the best education possible, and we're prepared to write out some pretty big checks. But I guess what I would say to people is, look, if you want your sons or daughters to get a good quality education, be smart consumers. Look for those colleges and universities that are actually focused on teaching. Don't simply assume because the tuition bill is high that you're going to get a better education. I understand how powerful, always pursuing the most prestigious degree might be, but ask yourself, what is the value added? And there ought to be more value assigned to schools that actually treat undergraduates seriously as a whole person and are committed to educating that young person. And I think that if we think of this as a marketplace, though, a marketplace of competing schools, there are outstanding choices, but there are also some truly horrible choices.
What a crazy idea that real value is actually more valuable.
Exactly. Well,
it's like gravity. You tried it?
Yeah. Well, that's why I think we have a bubble, though. It's not just that the cost of higher education has exploded, so much faster than the rate of inflation, and the debt has exploded. It's at the same time the value that people are getting for that has been declining, and this is what makes for bubbles. It kind of reminds me of the housing bubble. Yeah, people just okay, so I'm going to spend $50,000 a year on tuition, but it's worth it because it will lead to these middle class jobs. Well, what happens when those middle class jobs aren't there? What happens when people start asking tough questions about, well, what exactly did we get for that $50,000 a year? And I think that's beginning now.
Do you see what appears to be some upcoming upheavals in accreditation? Do you see that as something that's likely to help pop this bubble or mask it?
Yes. Accreditation is a huge issue because this is part of this gatekeeper. This is part of This is part of the way in which higher education protects itself and perpetuates itself. So I would certainly encourage alternative forms of accreditation to be able to say, look, we can't have a one-size-fits-all for all of these schools. We can't continue to reward what the academic, what the higher education complex values as opposed to what I think parents and students ought to value. So, that's going to be a key component.
It seems like, bottom of a lot of this, it's hard to miss the fact that simultaneously, while all this is happening, there's this massive erosion of commitment to just the idea of truth.
Oh.
Right? Just the idea that there's actually truth and that there's, objective reality to study and to know.
And at some point your feelings just don't count.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like Gabe said, gravity, have you tried it? There's this reality out there. And so that that's how you measure real value. So when we're talking about real value, we're talking about students that go in with knowing less, coming out knowing more. And that they actually you can actually measure that, and it's real and it's true and objective. And while we, it doesn't seem like a surprise at all then that we devalue truth, and then we're surprised that truth isn't the way we measure value.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I just gave an interview a little while ago on a completely different subject, actually, about how we have really become a post-truth society.
Yeah.
That our politics are post-truth, and that we have a tendency to blame, the media, which I'm willing to do, and the political class and politicians for this. But the reality is that we, as a culture, have devalued the concept of truth. We've devalued the creating critical thinking, so that people can actually engage in linear thought and ask whether this is true or not.
Yeah.
Alan Bloom wrote this book about the closing of the American mind back in the 1980s.
Yep.
And the lack of ability of a generation to basically make distinctions between truth and falsity, between right and wrong, to engage in sequential logical reasoning, and to make moral choices. There's a consequence to society for having an educational system that does not value those things and does not present those things.
You've been complimentary to the liberal arts colleges up to this point, but I think on that subject, the liberal arts colleges are probably the most to blame for that slide.
That's interesting.
And basically meaning that truth is absent, or the desire for truth in liberal arts.
Because they're the ones driving the sort of the postmodern, post-truth ideology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
no, it's funny because that's not funny. That was not the word. It's not funny at all.
But we'll laugh.
The first time I began writing about postmodernism was back in the 1980s, when it was very much an academic phenomenon. And to look back on it now and to realize how that kind of thinking has now seeped into the general culture, how it has become popularized, and how it really drives and affects much of the political debate that we have right now. It's kind of alarming. Yeah. But again, it goes back to something that we all know and need to be reminded of, is that ideas matter, ideas have consequences, and sometimes the consequences are pretty dramatic.
Right, but if language really is just coercive and violent, and it doesn't actually correspond to reality and so on, then everything is just manipulation, and so you're just trying to get what you can get, and then you go back to college. Bachelor's degrees are basically a union card.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So you get the union card, and what that card actually represents becomes less significant.
Right.
Because what is an educated man? What is the knowledge that they're supposed to have? Well, higher education discourages asking questions. The higher education complex, discourages that, because they want you to focus in on that union card or the prestige of their degree.
You noted a quote from William Bennett where you said that in your book, this quote, he said that higher education is under-accountable and underproductive. I'm just wondering, if we were to rectify that, what does it look like to get higher education accountable? To whom should it be accountable? Who's failing to give it the grade it needs to receive right now?
Wow. Yeah, and that's probably a long answer for that. But obviously, it should be accountable. First of all, to society and to the students as well. I do think that in terms of accountability, there ought to be this question. Basic questions like, okay, what is the value added? What has someone learned in the 2, 3, 4, 5 years that you spend in higher education? Does every single degree have to be a 4-year degree? Can we now begin talking about possible alternatives? Can we look at different ways of teaching and presenting and evaluating knowledge? All of those things, I think, are out there. But right now, you go to any major university in America and ask basically, okay, so what does a 4-year degree, what has someone learned? Can you tell us, can you quantify it in any given way? In any way? The answer is no. They don't. They can't do it because they don't want to do it. There's no measurement whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And if you are charging the kind of money that people are paying right now, there's got to be some sort of accountability.
So I have worked in corporate life for the last 10 years, 11 years, and the common understanding is you get what you measure. And so you get what you measure, and it's kind of like you get what you incentivize. Well, you also get what you measure. I feel like part of my work had been in education, and they're always talking about, oh, well, we just need to change this, or we just need to tweak this policy. Okay, the incentives are slightly off, or this continuing education fund needs to be reworked to incentivize this better, whatever. And they're always talking about the surface issues of how to make education better and work smoothly and get the right outcomes that they desire. It seems like they're just going around and around in circles. Let me get to my question here. We're a Christian podcast, and I feel like nothing is being discussed at the root of the matter. The root problems aren't being discussed. I believe that all truth begins with Jesus. We don't have math. We don't have you don't get 1 + 1 = 2 without there being a logical God driving that system, right? You can't even make that up out of thin air. And so, I mean, like, Harvard, a lot of these colleges that were foundational to America's educational system were founded on that truth. Were founded on Jesus Christ being the basis of all truth. And so the farther we get away from that, now you see in our education system, we got emotional angst everywhere. That's not anchored to any sort of truth. And no university, I can't tell you how many education professors, presidents that I've worked with in the last 10 years who either would not answer the question, what is truth, which should be a basic question that every college president should be able to answer, right? Just what is truth? Your job is to defend that. You're the president, answer it. Or would just say, that's a good question and kind of leave it there. I know that's kind of a really question, but a lot of thoughts there.
These are the kinds of questions that I think parents and students need to ask. I think they need to ask questions like this. If I come to your institution, what will I learn? Do you take concepts like truth seriously or not? I think that a lot of parents would be really shocked by the intellectual atmosphere of what actually goes on in the classroom. And this does, as you mentioned, apply to, small liberal arts schools as well. So again, ask those kinds of questions. And if for no other reason, that it'd be entertaining to watch the college presidents squirm.
Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes left. Let's maybe give Charlie one more question. Do you guys want to?
Yeah. I'm curious, towards the end of your book, you started pointing towards this idea that, is it the MOOC?
Yes.
Yeah, MOOCs.
The MOOCs, as this sort of disruptive new thing. And it seemed like, and I think you acknowledged this to a certain degree, but it seemed like, is not the MOOC just another version of the same problem we're having of a very distant education, where I can understand how a MOOC would be disruptive to a dysfunctional university, the way that you've described it, but a functioning school that was really delivering what it promised, isn't the MOOC actually a distant second or third to the quality that you would get in a real classroom?
Yes, I mean, obviously, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Now, the MOOCs are these, it's a terrible acronym, massive open online classes.
Yeah.
What it would do, though, would be for a smaller school, a way of kind of weaponizing their curriculum, where I would envision that you find the best and the brightest teachers from all over the country, and you'd be able to add them to your basically store of weaponry, so that students would be able, and again, you can pick and choose which ones you want to offer, and which ones would share your value. But for example, if you wanted to have a course by somebody like Robert George from Princeton, or somebody else who might be teaching at the University of Washington, these really high level courses can be a supplement rather than a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
But my main point is that is that they provide a form of, technological alternative to the status quo. Every other industry, every other institution has been changed and transformed by these new technologies. Why not higher education?
I really like that weaponizing curriculum line. I think we should popularize that. We're going to weaponize our curriculum. That's great.
That was actually a bit of a microaggression.
Back to the question that Ben was asking a minute ago about accountability. I think it seems like what the force of all this is that, the government, like it does with many other things in the market, kills accountability. If you have free money flowing into the market, you don't have to. There's the market forces that are meant to make you compete. They dissipate
or minimize.
Yeah. So is the way forward to real accountability for schools getting government out of it?
Yes, to the extent that you possibly can, and that's why I'm concerned about these government bailouts that some of the politicians are talking about. That in fact it would eliminate that pressure, that pressure to be more accountable. And going back to this question of accountability, unfortunately, a lot of schools do think that they are accountable not to the students, but to government, and government bureaucracy is becoming increasingly heavy-handed on these schools, pushing their agenda, using laws that were never intended for the purpose they are, to push their agenda. But a lot of what's going on with the microaggressions and the safe spaces and some of the handling of sexual assault is being very much driven out of Washington by the federal government. And you do have a lot of the policies of schools that are being pushed by this political agenda and this political narrative.
Yeah.
That's very good. Well, folks, you can pick up Charlie's book, Fail You, that's Fail You University, The False Promise of Higher Education. You also, like you mentioned, a book you wrote, kind of a prequel to this, was Prof Scam. You wrote back in the 80s. Yep.
Yeah.
And,
we'll link both these books on the CrossPolitic website, so our listeners can go check those out on Amazon and order them up, share them, give them to their friends for Christmas.
Send them to your senators and legislators.
That's right. Thanks so much for your time, Charlie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlie.
Well, my pleasure. I've enjoyed it very much.
Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist.
If you had 1 minute to be able to unpack for the audience,
we interview the world's leading apologists to provide credible answers to curious questions.
Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist. My name is Bobby Conway, and I am here with Dr. Richard Howe, an author and professor at Southern Evangelical Seminary. Dr. Howe, it's good to be with you.
Thank you, Bobby. It's good to be here.
Dr. Howe, there's a lot of belief out there concerning what it means to be a cult. How would you answer, what is a cult?
That word is used in two different ways, Bobby, and it causes a lot of confusion. The media uses the word to talk about groups that are socially or personally destructive. You think of Branch Davidians or the Jim Jones cult, people committing suicide, and these kind of things. Theologians have used the word to mean a group that departs from one or more of the essential doctrines of the Christian faith. So when we sometimes refer to, say, the groups like Mormons being a cult, we're often misunderstood as if we meant to say that Mormons themselves were socially and personally destructive, which is not what we're saying. Generally, Mormons are very conservative, family value oriented, so we don't mean to say them as a cult in the sociological sense, but more in the theological sense.
So we're saying that they've been off on one or more doctrines.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we mean.
Good answer.
Fail You, Charles Sykes. Ladies and gentlemen, this segment is brought to you by Deschutes Black Butte Porter.
I thought you were going to say NSA. I was like, yeah, sponsor.
And New Belgium, Fat Tire.
All right.
I need to get me some of that.
Delicious.
Yeah, we
Hold on. You guys talk.
You're too nervous. You've been too nervous about Wayne Grudem.
Look, you know what? That bothers me. I had a lot of respect for Wayne Grudem.
Got the chocolate knocks down.
He did. That's one of the guys. While I was over in the charismatic movement,
It hurts.
Didn't have any solid theology. here's Wayne Grudem, a shining light over there, bringing me
can't-
over to you guys.
You can't
right?
put your trust in men.
I know idols
Come
always
on.
break the hearts of their worshipers.
Come
I
on
know,
now.
but you know what? It's a guy who I respect and who I'm willing to say, you know what? This is a wise man, and I'm going to stand behind him.
Open that beer.
Okay,
let's talk about higher ed.
Yes.
Let's talk about Charles Sykes. I did not read the book,
I'll read this and drink while you guys talk.
but I listened very carefully
to the interview, to what he said in the interview.
And man, it seemed like
the book is. I think it's fantastic. It's a really devastating account of what's going on in higher ed right now, and it's a really easy read. You can do it pretty quick.
even I could do it, Ben.
Even you,
Pastor Toby.
All right. I might get to it. Actually, I mentioned this earlier. The New St. Andrews College board met this last weekend, and I was asked to give an exhortation, a charge to the board as we kick things off, and I used some of what we talked about in that conversation as a springboard for the exhortation, and because the thing that really struck me about this interview, this conversation with Sykes, it's like not a very deep thing, really.
Yeah, no.
Horrifyingly simple, but education is actually about the transfer of real, valuable knowledge, wisdom. I mean, the Bible says that wisdom is more valuable than gold and silver and rubies, and nothing you can desire compares with wisdom.
Amen.
It has real value. And so if a student isn't actually being educated, they're not actually receiving that value, and then the education is literally worthless.
Right.
Has no value. And so the value of an education has everything to do with like a real transfer of knowledge, wisdom, understanding. And it's no accident that in a culture that on the one hand you got government doing its thing. We talked about that a little bit in the interview, subsidizing things as if this information is not worth it. It needs to get propped up. It needs government subsidy, and which actually dilutes it. Even further. But on the flip side, you got all this relativism, this postmodernism that says we're not even really sure if there is such a thing as truth.
Yeah.
Right. And so like when you don't know
Except that statement.
Yeah. Right. But if we don't know what truth is, then we don't know what an education is.
Yeah.
You look. I was going to. Am I interrupting? I don't want to interrupt.
I
I know you're a beast of it. I don't want to.
We got to hear from El Jefe.
Well, go ahead, Doctor.
Well, no, I fully agree, and I think for one thing, just as if you're that next generation, what sense does it make to position yourself so that you don't receive the inheritance? You've got this massive treasure stored up of wisdom, and then to put yourself in a line where you're not going to receive the inheritance is just terrifying. But the other thing is, I think you see, and I think Sykes brings this out well, how you've got two things where education is both put forward as this false savior.
Right.
Everybody appeals now. If there's a problem, education will heal it.
Right.
And so you've turned it into a false god and then thrown free money at it. And there's no better way to ruin something than to turn it into an idol and throw free money at it.
Right. And they're not really talking about and the fact of the matter is it's not really education. It's called education, but it's educational programs.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of programs in which they think that something automatically good is going to happen.
Right.
Because you have this structure, but if you don't have a foundational understanding of what truth is and why truth matters, then that's not going to fix anything.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you mentioned the board. We had just finished another book for the board,
Which I also didn't read.
Oh, I did read that.
This is confession time.
I'm blanking on the title of it now, but it was a really
it had a big X on it. Excellent Sheep.
Excellent Sheep. Yes, excellent.
I read the cover.
Wow, you got that part.
Ben read the book. You read the cover. We got this together.
We worked together.
Yes.
We worked together.
Yes.
The
He
board
points
and the
out though how
president.
about 50 years ago, if you were to ask the question, you put a list of questions. Why do you go to college? What's the purpose for going to college? And it was somewhere between 70 to 80% of the people would say to improve my mind so I can be a better thinker, a clearer thinker, and understand who I am.
To learn.
And then about 30%, around 30, would say so I can make more money. And he said now it's the exact opposite.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It is
to
just
get
about,
a job.
It's
Make
about
money.
a job,
Yeah.
and not about character formation, which makes it this we radically narrowed what an education is about.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is if you tell somebody, no, education is about so much more than that, they right away immediately are suspicious that you're saying, I'm going to give you something where you won't be able to get a job.
Well, I'm looking at you with the eye right now like, look, man, I need to make some money.
But this is because we don't believe the truth actually exists and that truth is actually valuable.
Yeah.
And so a college education is like playing the lottery.
Yeah.
Like you're just playing the slots. And you're trying to get it's just odds.
Well, and you artificially inflate the cost so high, eventually it's gonna become a numbers game. It's not gonna become about learning information. It's gonna become about making money.
But this is because we've lost. I mean, meaning. There's no meaning.
But
the
thing that's ironic about that though is you're saying because we don't believe in that there is such a thing as objective truth, and the question is where did we get taught that? It was the liberal arts department.
It was the academy
in our colleges that said there's no such thing as objective truth. And what they did is they completely destroyed their entire department. Where an English department now exists so that we can provide business writing classes for the business majors.
Technical writing.
Yeah, it's technical writing. You exist in order to provide the core for the other degrees that are vocationally oriented. But the humanities destroyed itself. And is sitting there, in the corner, kind of whining, but not understanding that we're the ones that did it to ourselves.
So I got a fundamental question here. How did
I just want to point out that Gabriel raised his hand.
I did.
He raised his hand to talk.
I interrupted.
That was very good. That's very good. Way to raise your hand.
He was like, Knox is going to jump on this.
Look at me.
We're not going to put his name on the board this time.
Okay.
But Gabriel, that's your,
You have a fundamental
So
question.
I read something this past week where it said, I think out of 108.
You're just bragging that you read.
I did. I can't even remember what I read.
It was a book by
What did I read, Toby? What did I read, Toby?
Finish.
So it said something like out of the first 108 colleges that started here on American soil, I think 102 of them were started for Christian foundational reasons.
102 out of 108?
Yeah, is unreal. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone brings up the Harvard example, right? Harvard, through and through, and the core Christian. In fact, I read through. Do I need to speak in there a little more? And I read through.
Eat that mic.
Yes. Oh, I got excited here. So one of the things that Harvard put out when they started their college, they put rules and precepts of Harvard. Okay, and this is unreal. They have 8 of them, and I just want to list number. I just want to read number 2 and then ask you a question about this. So it says, "Let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well the main end of his life and studies is to know God and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life." John 17:3. Right. And then it goes on to say, "And therefore to lay Christ in the bottom of everything." Christ is foundational everything. I mean, that's precept number 2.
Harvard,
right? How did we get from all these Christian universities to where we're at now? Big question.
3 words. In 3 words.
And
3 words.
How much time does he have left?
So, I mean, I think you have the larger, just the trajectory of the liberalizing within the church, which is, a complicated story, but that's a big part of it. And then I think within the schools, it was the shift towards thinking that it's not about the formation of the mind, it's about prepping you for a vocational, some sort of vocational opportunity.
Right.
And by vocational, you mean, again, it's trying to get a job in order to get money.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's not not a rich biblical understanding of vocation as calling by God to be fruitful.
But even that, I think we ought to push against that definition of vocational training, because if you want to say, I want to make you into the kind of person who will be able to take care of themselves, vocational training is actually, the way it's being used now, actually doesn't fit the bill very well. Because what it does is it gives you the technical skills that are associated with one particular job. But I would be interested if we went around the circle here and asked, what was your undergraduate degree and how does it line up with what you're doing for a career now? Toby's, yours works because you went to NSA. So you get
which is a plug for NSA. A plug for NSA.
New St. Andrews College.
NSA.edu.
But I was I was an education major focusing on chemistry. I haven't touched a test tube since I got out of college.
Say that again. You did what?
Yeah. I did chemistry.
And didn't you drive tanks in the Army or something?
Marine Corps, please.
Sorry.
Hey, shut his mic off.
Sorry.
What you talking about? Sorry. Don't get it twisted.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
water skiing and tanks.
Yes. You dig?
You know what I'm saying?
You down.
But people think I need to get this certain major so that I can have this kind of job. And
Right.
you find out that, when you show up that first day on the job,
That's right. They're gonna teach you.
that's when your actual vocational training
That's
begins.
right. That's
I mean,
right.
everybody knows
Right.
it's in the industry. You actually find out how we do it. College is about preparing you to be the kind of person who can do the job, but it's who can learn the job, who can do all the and be a bigger person than the job. And I think when you just pick your degree so that you can prep for one particular skill set, you're really paying. You're going to school for 4 years and paying how many, tens of thousands of dollars for something you could have picked up in 3 months.
Bernie Sanders is going to make sure education is free one way or another.
right.
So they're not going to pay anything.
Chocolate Knox is our resident liberal. Bernie dropped out. I just wanted to point that out.
You think he dropped out? He's working behind, man.
So
he knows what he's doing.
he sold his soul to Hillary. So wisdom. This is we're talking about wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
biblical wisdom is not a checklist.
Yeah.
Right. Biblical wisdom is a character, is a way of walking before God in this world, such that you can handle whatever the world throws at you, whatever life throws at you. Wisdom is not just black and white. It's principles that allow you to apply what God has said about the world and what's true about the world to your life.
And
every
learning
day.
to walk faithfully in it. And the thing is we make it all about the salary, and in doing so, we've cheapened it so much. Because the thing is even if
That's
we
a
were
great
to
way to put it. Yeah.
if we were
Yeah.
to just say it's about the money, just think of it this way: how expensive is sin? Like if you're living a foolish life of sin, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars are you going to flush because of the various vices and the stupid directions you're going to take your life?
Right.
It's a foolish way just in terms of the cost analysis.
This is all, and it's all just a great, illustration of if you try to save your life, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
Or if you try to save your life, you lose it. If you try to, hit the jackpot, you're gonna lose it.
Can I just speak to a group of people that are listening to this? This is probably shocking for them to hear this, because the worldview that's set up now is
Getting ready to be shocked.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna try.
Well, I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is fresh. I know this, I agree with this, but a lot of this is fresh because what we're taught is you go to not even a Christian school. Most people are sending their kids to government schools to be trained and educated. But you go to a school, should be Christian school or homeschooled, and then you go to college.
But they got to be light.
Right.
They got to be light.
right. So they can be light to witness to those, right? There's a lot of people who got saved from Christian kids in government schools.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Tons of them. Tons. It's a revival, bro. And so you go
we got Donald Trump. All those Christians sending their kids to public schools.
So oh boy, you guys are good. Send your emails to
crosspolitic@gmail.com.
There you go. But so you go and you get this education, and usually you want to make sure that those, kindergarten to 12, it is extremely Christian, saturated in the Word of God, and so that you can have some form of way to support your family. Because I'm sorry, play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Liberal arts degree doesn't really get me a job anywhere. Right. I'm sorry, I can't get a job, and I don't make any money. I can't support my family. So this sounds all nice and good on one side, but hey, I got a good Christian education from kindergarten to 12, especially homeschoolers, right?
Right.
Raised in the home, godly house. These kids know how to live godly lives.
Right.
Right? And so they have this saturation there already. Don't they need something to apply that to apart from a liberal arts degree?
Yeah.
And so
I'm totally sympathetic with that question. Like, I mean, I want to have a job.
Be a politician. Look at that. I am totally sympathetic.
He has a private policy and a public policy.
I'm very open.
Okay.
No, I mean, I get that because, and that's the thing is like when you say, no, education about all of life. If I'm a high school student, I'm thinking you are shining me on. You're trying to hide the fact that I can't get a job with your degree.
And you're trying to make some money off.
Yeah, you're just trying to change the subject.
Why do I need one more Latin paradigm?
Yeah. But
what's that?
Two different views.
Did you go to public school?
The truth of the matter is, like, I look at the students who have graduated from NSA. I don't see unemployment. Like, I mean, that's an interesting thing. Is like we have
meme net.
I don't see unemployment.
Hey, the kids that graduate from my school, no unemployment.
Yeah. Well, no, it's true. I haven't ever seen a student graduate from
all
NSA.
7 of us.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen a student graduate from NSA and not get a job. Now, maybe they don't get a high-paying job or whatever, but they all transition to work, which is really shocking because if you look at the actual unemployment after a college degree, I forget the actual statistic, but it can get pretty scary. And like you think you finish college, you get a job, but that's not the norm anymore.
I was actually thinking about this just in the boardroom on Friday and Saturday. There's 5 alums, I think, on the board, or 4 of us. Yeah. And but I'm looking around the room at the guys that are all grads of NSA, and it's impressive.
Oh yeah, they're doing quite well. One's a tax attorney. One's an investment with Goldman Sachs. They're not struggling for work. If I want to just sit and like list what NSA graduates are doing. Last graduating class, one girl's off to Harvard to do her master's. I know 2 that are at Oxford right now, one doing a doctorate, one doing a master's, not from this last class, but previous. One of our grads just finished his doctorate at Princeton, is now a prof at Dort. Like I can just go through. One's in her second year at University of Chicago Law. Wow. MBA, one's MBA from Wharton, MBA from Notre Dame, MBA from, and we got people doing like engineering. We got people doing medicine. We got people doing business. Yeah,
law.
Because we're not shining you on. We say you get an education for all of life, and you could go anywhere. You go do anything because you train people to think clearly, to be creative, hard workers who don't need their hand held to do the work, and who are strong, clear, and persuasive communicators in the written and spoken word.
Had that double swag. I could put on a bow tie and ski.
Exactly.
Yeah, the double swag.
And drive the tank.
And drive the tank. But for real though.
But I think back to your question, Chuck, is that I think part of the answer to that though is if you stop at 12th grade and then you go and you get educated by the world, what Charles Sykes and is talking about though is the fact that higher ed by and large has rejected the idea of wisdom. So you can go to the university, you can go to the state college, and you can dig around and you can probably find some good professors, some good instructors, and you can pull together an education. But it's far different than going to a school where they understand on the front side, we are going to teach you wisdom.
And the thing is I get like the K through 12 Christian schools that are out there now are doing an excellent job. But if you were to go to any of those schools and track their graduates as they go on through college, you would see that we are not doing a good job at the college level. I mean, the church is hemorrhaging with our students in college. We're losing them all over the place.
But isn't that more of an issue what's happening between the K and 12 instead of less of an issue of what's happening after after graduation?
Not necessarily. I mean,
when I'm out on a campus, I don't know if I already said this on this show, but we go out on campus a couple times a week, sharing the gospel, preaching, and I've been blown away by how many students I run into. When we first started this, I thought I was going to be talking to lots and lots of students who, didn't know anything about Jesus, didn't know anything about the church, didn't know anything about God at all. And I am blown away that I think over half of the students I talked to grew up in a church, went to youth group, went to Christian school.
We are losing them like crazy.
And they're at the university, and they said, and I came here, and now I realize I don't need religion anymore.
And all these parents that sacrificed for all these principles to put their kids K through 12 and give them this Christian education, they turn all the principles off. When it comes to college. No government money. Nope. They'll take all the government money, suddenly.
I've heard of stats of upwards to 80% of Christians lose their faith in public secular universities.
I don't think we realize like the kind of full court press that's going on at the state colleges and the public universities.
You're right, no.
It is intentional.
Yeah.
We talked to the guy from Pride. Campus Pride is coming up, right?
Yes.
Next episode.
That'll be next Friday, not this Friday.
Okay, so in a couple of weeks, what's his name? The Chick-fil-A buddies. The guy that came out about being Dan Cathy's friend, Windmeyer.
Yes, Shane Windmeyer.
Shane Windmeyer. We talked to him.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a full court press. They want our kids.
Campus Pride has a list of top 100 universities, a shame list for top 100 universities who are anti-LGBT friendly. They're shaming list. They're going full court.
Get in there, doctor.
We're trying to get NSA on the list. We're doing our best.
I told them about it. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. Well, the only reason we're not on the list, all they did was there's the schools that were taking government money.
Yeah, Liberty University.
Yeah, they're
Master's
taking the government
College.
money, but they don't want to follow this ideology. They had to get a special exemption to get out, and that created this list. Well, that list became the shame list.
Yes.
NSA is not on the list because
we
we
don't
take government money.
take government money.
Hey, another plug for NSA.
Whoa, what do you know?
So, real quick, real short, 30 seconds. Lay out the pattern for someone like me who doesn't have high school kids yet. They're still in elementary school. Lay out a pattern that I should probably think about when it comes to higher education for my kids. And how do I start that now? And what should I be thinking about, the next 10 years to get on the plane where, hey, you know what? This is where I want my kids to be at so they can affect more gospel change in the world.
You got to chant Latin paradigms. I'm kidding.
Get them in a good, honestly, the classical Christian schools, ACCS, schools like that, they're doing the best job that I've seen. I would say give them in a good school like that and start thinking in a principled way about what are the parameters around the decision making you'll have for college. And I would say visit a few. Ask them hard questions.
That was a good sign. He liked it. So you can. That's still drumbeat.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening to Cross Politic. Check us out.
Charles Sykes.
Charles Sykes.
Fail you. Check out NSA.
Yes.
New St. Andrews College. NSA.edu.
No doubt.
What ACCS? Right. I mean that's a.
Yep.
Is it ACCS.org?
ACS.edu.
Google it.
.org.
.internet.